we've done some research recently that demonstrates creative award-winning companies drive faster shareholder growth and faster profitability than those that don't win those awards. Now, look, awards are just a marker in time, right? But ultimately what they do is they're a signal that creativity is important to an organization. If you invest hard in these things, it drives business growth.
Welcome to Content Kingdom. This is your backstage pass to the people, tools, and the trends shaping the future of content marketing.
And welcome to another episode of Content Kingdom. I'm your host, David G. Ewing, and we are doing our Content in the Wild, our session from Content Marketing World 2025. And with me is the Chief Operating Officer of LIONS, Paul Coxhill. Paul, it is so awesome to have you on Content Kingdom.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right. So, Paul, in a way, this whole thing is kind of like your doing, right? I mean, you're the guy who has set up this whole conference, and this among many others, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so LIONS is a family of brands now. Obviously, Cannes Lions is the most famous brand that we own, south of France every year, celebrating creativity in all its forms. Content Marketing World is a recent addition to our portfolio. We were acquired by Informa last year, and Content Marketing World is an event Informa's run for a good few years, and that's now become part of the LIONS family, alongside other brands like Effie, Walk, and Contagious. So we're really ultimately why LIONS exists is to help marketers to make the case for investment in creative marketing in the boardroom. So all of our brand portfolio ultimately is here to help marketers do that.
So I was talking to a member of your team earlier today, and I was trying to get maybe some better ways to describe Cannes Lions to an American audience who may not be as familiar with it, which, I'd say that our audience is probably 50-50.
Yep.
And I said, so is it kind of like South by Southwest in Cannes in France? And they're like, no, it's bigger. So what can you tell me about Cannes Lions?
Yeah, look, I mean, interestingly, roughly half of the people who come to Cannes come from the US. Mm-hmm. So there's a huge audience from America over there every year. And we often hear from people that they see people they work with down the street in New York, but they never get to see them in New York, but they meet in Cannes over a drink and have a great meeting there. So it's an amazing event. It's the home of creativity. We call it the Festival of Creativity. And really, it's celebrating creativity through the awards show, which is the heart and soul of the festival. Mm-hmm. The awards started 70 plus years ago. And they were there to celebrate great creativity in advertising. And then the event has grown from that. That's still the core, celebrating great work and the impact that creativity can have. But around that now, we have talks, we have several stages of content. We have an event that goes across the whole of the city with activations from companies like LinkedIn, Pinterest, Meta, Google, etc. So the scale of the event now is citywide, but ultimately that core truth of celebrating creativity is what it's all about.
All right. Well, next June, I'm coming. It's June, right?
It's June. Please come.
I'm coming because I need to see for myself. If this is bigger than South by in my dear home of Austin, Texas, then we're going to have to step up our game, Austin, because, we're going to see what we got.
You can tell me after you've come.
All right. It seems like it's bigger, so I'm excited, and so we'll look at it. But, you've been doing it for what, 70 years?
70 plus years.
70 plus years. Yeah. And so you guys have created a database of creativity through all of that time. And that's where the next part of the family of LIONS comes in, right? So isn't that what work is? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the core of Cannes Lions is the awards. So we've got over 200,000 award entries. So creative examples of best practice. No, in total.
Okay, so I was going to say, we
get around 25 plus thousand entries each year.
Wow.
So that just builds that corpus of knowledge. Yeah. And we have all of those now on a website called The Work, which is where you can go and look back over 70 years of creativity, get inspired, look at what worked, what didn't, go by category, by country. So that's an amazing platform. We also have a business called Warc, W-A-R-C, which is a business we acquired about 10 years ago. And that's the home of marketing strategy and planning intelligence. So we have case studies in there, but we also have thought leadership, best practice, latest thinking on how do I cut through from a brand and performance perspective. And that platform has subscribers all over the world. So that's complementary to the awards entry database that we have from Cannes.
Got it. Yeah. And that's WARC.
WARC, World Advertising Research Center.
There we go.
Yes,
all right,
that's what it stands for. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so that's the second part of the family, and there's two more, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right?
So we have a business called Contagious, and Contagious is an advisory and digital business, but that's all about helping brands to figure out what's coming next in creativity.
I see.
So if the awards database is looking at what worked previously, Contagious is all about understanding trends, insights about what's coming next year, the year after that you're going to need to be thinking about now in order to win in creativity going forwards. So we do a lot of advisory business from Contagious, but we also have a digital platform of latest thinking and insights on Contagious IQ. And then lastly, most recent acquisition is the Effies. So the Effies, I don't know if you'll be familiar with them. They are a global award celebrating marketing effectiveness, marketing impact.
Okay.
So Effie award shows run all over the world. Again, there's tens of thousands of Effie case studies that we've now got on our database and on our platforms. And that's all about not just great creative work, but work that had impact and results. So that's all about celebrating the results. So you put that together with what we celebrate in Cannes. You got great creativity, then you've got FE, great results, and you wrap that together and you've got creative effectiveness. And that's what we're trying to demonstrate the impact.
Okay, so I think the lights are coming on for me here, that it's all about creativity. But I think the biggest critique that people have about historical shows around creativity is that, yeah, it's creative, but like, did it sell?
100%.
But you guys are taking it to the next level to say, we've got the creativity, we have the historical data, we have the results and effectiveness, and then we have services so that if you would like to leverage all of these things without having to figure it out yourself, we can help you. And you put that all together under the LIONS brand.
100%. Okay. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
And our services are advisory, online digital services, and learning as well. So we've launched recently with Fernando Mercado, the ex-Burger King CMO, a growth MBA learning program online that's using all of the intelligence and advice that we've got together with his experience to educate that next generation of marketers. And that's something we're also doing with the team here at Content Marketing World through their university that they run with the AMA in the States. So we're really investing now hard in learning for that future generation of marketers using all of these assets that we've got.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are really the ultimate academy here for marketing, and that's pretty exciting. So tell me about you, though. So you're the chief operating officer. How did you get here? Because that sounds pretty amazing.
It's so I'm a marketer by background myself. So I was nearly 20 years in marketing roles and CMO roles in Barclays Bank and UK and South Africa, in some scale-ups, and then ended up coming into the business that owns LIONS about 12 years ago in some marketing roles as a B2B CMO in a trend forecasting business called WGSN, and then sprung from there to actually run the Warc business when we bought it. So I moved from CMO to CEO of the Warc business. And then over the last couple of years, we've put that together with Cannes Lions and created what we've just been talking about. So I guess I've gone on that journey from CMO to business leadership, and now putting together this amazing set of brands to build something that obviously drives business growth for ourselves, but also hopefully really gives back to the wider industry. So it's super cool. I'm very lucky to be in the position.
So from CMO to CEO to COO.
Yeah.
Okay. Which was the hardest transition for you?
I think probably CMO to CEO, because it's unfortunately not a path well trodden. It should be a path more trodden, because I passionately believe that more CMOs should become CEOs.
Yeah.
Because if you think about what a CEO needs, they need real customer insight, in order to do their job properly. They need to understand growth and be able to drive growth. And they need to be able to work across many different stakeholder groups. CMOs have to do all of those things every day. So I think that path should be much more trodden than it is. But it was still an adjustment to gain credibility in functions outside of what I was doing before, whether that's finance or operations or whatever. But I absolutely loved it. And the transition to COO is now, COO is overseeing a portfolio of brands. So the CEO role was one brand, and this is now that kind of portfolio role over a number of brands. So every one of them has been fascinating, but it's been a cool journey.
Got it. Now, I know there are a bunch of CMOs that are in our audience that are licking their chops thinking about that CEO corner office.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them to help them prepare for a transition from CMO to CEO?
Look, I think two things. First of all is to show interest in things beyond your core function. So if you're only ever talking about marketing, and not placing that in the context of the wider business, understanding the challenges of HR, of operations, of IT, then you're not really seen as a wider cross-functional voice. So I think obviously you've got to deliver in your lane, but also show interest in the other lanes too, without being intrusive, but being certainly showing collaboration. And then secondly, I think you've got to talk the language of the boardroom, the language of the CEO, the CFO. There's no excuse for only talking about marketing metrics that no one else understands. You can talk about those to your marketing team, but to the boardroom, you've got to talk in the language that they are talking and adjust the language you use to that. It's not going to happen the other way around. A CFO isn't going to suddenly start talking about likes on LinkedIn. You have to explain why that's beneficial, why that helps drive that agenda. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to be credible in the room. So those would be the two key things.
So it reminds me of a Japanese proverb, which I think is something to the effect of, a person with a hammer sees the world as a bunch of nails. And if you're a CMO and you want to talk your CMO stuff, you've got a hammer, but it's not all nails, right? So
100%.
Get the rest of the tools in the toolkit and make it work.
And look, because of what we do, we're lucky to see that the evidence is there for what marketing can do for driving business growth. Mm-hmm. It's not hidden. But unfortunately, not enough marketers are trained or sometimes inquisitive enough to actually be able to understand that evidence and then make the case to the CFO and the CEO. We've done some research recently that demonstrates creative award-winning companies drive faster shareholder growth and faster profitability than those that don't win those awards. Now, look, awards are just a marker in time, right?
Sure.
But ultimately what they do is they're a signal that creativity is important to an organization. And we can demonstrate through them, we've done it with Interbrand, and we can demonstrate from the math that actually if you invest hard in these things, it drives business growth. So marketers need to make that case and use the numbers they've got because the tools are there.
I think, taking it back onto that topic for a minute, I think that is interesting. And I think that there are a lot of marketers who are trying to quantify the value of creativity. And I was wondering if you had some thoughts about how does an executive team start to approach creativity, which sounds so nebulous. I mean, it sounds good. We all love creativity, right? Sounds great. But, when you're sitting there and you're trying to allocate, do we implement a new ERP with the IT team? Do we, invest in new machines and equipment, or do we invest in creativity?
Yeah.
How do you stack up creativity and make that case?
Yeah, look, it's not easy, so no one's going to pretend it is easy. But again, it's about talking about creativity through the language and the lens that the wider organization would understand. So, for example, we all know, if you look at it from an investor perspective, hedge funds know this very well, that intangible assets are the most valuable part, or goodwill as it's sometimes called, the most valuable part of many organizations globally. It's not the tangible assets that they've got, it's those intangible assets. Companies like Airbnb, even physical goods companies, the value of the intangible asset is sometimes much greater than the tangible asset. Investors know that really, really well, but they don't make the connection between intangible assets, sometimes meaning brand, which links to how do I drive brand? I drive that through marketing and creativity. And who looks after that? Well, the marketing function does. And marketers are not very good at telling that story. So if you go right the way back to the language that the CFO and the investor community would understand, and then retell that from a marketing perspective and a brand and creativity perspective, you can make a much more powerful case.
I really like that because, as an amateur, I'm obviously not someone who invests in a lot of Fortune 500s, run a Fortune 500 company. But, when I do look at the goodwill line, to me, like my BS meter almost always goes off where I'm like, they had a bunch of other things they could name and account for, but then they didn't know how to account for the fact that they acquired a company and they paid way more than book value or some other type of thing. And so it just went in there. But I've never heard anybody say that that's what a great investor looks for, is they look at trying to really understand the goodwill, the intangible assets. And I think you're right. I hadn't ever considered it that way before. And okay, so if we're going to put creativity in there and say that is the magic pixie dust that gives a company that valuation that is far and outstrips their dollars and cents.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. And I mean, you see it every day in public markets, right? When companies go to ridiculous valuations and by any ratio of PE or PEG or anything else, they're just so much higher. And I've always been one of those people as a value investor who says, well, I would never buy that company. But then I watch on the sidelines as it doubles again, right? And so, I think that you're onto something with creativity there. So walk me through something that Lions does then to help a company that wants to be more creative. What can you guys do to help them drive that intangible goodwill up?
Yeah, and we've worked with a number of companies through our advisory business on this, and it's interesting because a lot of it comes back to quite boring fundamental stuff. It's not that we're suddenly going to sit around a room and come up with an amazing idea that no one thought of before. Hopefully, you get there eventually, but to have a consistent creative platform over time that delivers consistently brilliant work, you have to systematize that. You can't just, everyone can be lucky once in a while and do one great ad. But if you're developing a platform over time that consistently delivers great ads, you have to be going right the way back to leadership, making the connection again between what's the organization trying to achieve and therefore what do I as a marketer need to be able to achieve. Then how am I going to do that? I'm going to align my KPIs. So which KPIs can I control that link to the KPIs of the organization? And then if I'm going to really drive great creative work, I need to think about organizational structure. How does the decision-making flow work? Wherever ideas are coming from, and they're always there, are they being able to get to me or to be surfaced in the organization? And what's the process for that? How do I evaluate creativity? So some of the organizations we work with, we've developed a creative framework where all of the marketing teams get together every 3 months, look at all the work they've done and evaluate it together against a creative framework for that organization. They may have an internal awards that they run every year, and we run those for some companies as well. They may have a creative council where they're actually talking about creativity together. They may even have, and some of the larger companies we've worked with do this, a separate team whose job it is, if you're a big enough company, to run capabilities and training consistently over time to elevate creativity. And then when you're hiring people, you're actually looking not just at can they do this job, but are they creative in their mindset and their approach, and can we help train and adapt them to our standards of creativity? So if you do all those things, then you end up with a great team working in a clear process that's linked to the KPIs of the organization. Then it becomes inevitable that you're going to do great work. There's other things too, finding the right partners, making sure the agency is KPI'd on the same things you are, etc., getting all that alignment in place. But you have to do the hard work on creating the building blocks to then deliver consistent creativity over time. And when we've worked with companies, that can take 1 to 2 years to do it consistently, but it can be done. But it takes leadership, will, and investment to do it.
What I really like about that is, to me, creativity sounds like art. And I think random as soon as I hear that. And what I'm hearing you say is, well, the art, the creativity might be random, but the process is not. And so if you follow this process that you've described, then we've taken something that is random, chaotic, and we've put it, it might be pejorative to say we put it on an assembly line of creativity that we just stamp out. But if you're talking my language as more of an engineer and a CFO, it's like, we're going to stamp out creativity and it's going to be awesome every time. And you can get control over the process. But I love the framework idea because the framework is where you empower someone who's maybe not creative, right? Who is the CFO, or to audit what's going on in the creative department and really be able to say, hey, this isn't just creativity for creativity's sake. This isn't just modern art. This is creativity that produces intangible goodwill for us.
Yeah.
And that makes my BS meter go way, way down, you know? I like that. So, what are some of the skepticisms that, the non-creatives have? Because I imagine that the CMOs that you talk to are like, oh, I'm in, I'm on board. You've got the data, you got the history, you've got the people, you got it, right?
Yeah.
But I got to imagine the finance group is probably on the more skeptical side. So what evidence do you bring, or do you share? Or I don't know if you can tell me an example story, or if that's proprietary.
Yeah.
But, what do you do to kind of to sway the skeptics?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't. In no sense do I want to make it sound easy, because it's not easy. Because you have to really have that leadership support.
Can't be easy.
And creativity still conceptually is quite esoteric. So you do have to then turn that into a framework, like as we discussed, of how do I measure that? And you may not be able to measure a creative idea based on a result, because you don't know how much you're going to invest in the media, et cetera. But you can measure that creative idea against the framework we discussed earlier. But some of the best examples I've seen, I'll use MasterCard as an example, because it's in the public domain.
We happen to know them. They've been on Content Kingdom, so that's great.
Right.
Okay.
So Raja, the CMO, a couple of years ago in Cannes, actually, he came on stage with his CFO to talk about how do they inculcate creativity and results and measurement into their organization. So he brought the CFO to Cannes on stage with him, and they jointly told the story about how do they get investment, results, and then that hamster wheel back of saying what worked, what didn't, and proving it every time. And what Raja basically did is he put his money where his mouth is. So he said to the CFO, I'm going to hire a finance person from the marketing budget, and I'm going to hire them in the marketing team on my costs, but they work with your framework and they work with your team, and their sole job is to prove the impact of the marketing that I'm doing in a language you'll understand. And by doing that investment, he committed some of his marketing budget to do that and hire someone who worked with the CFO. And now they've got this relationship working so well that as long as he keeps delivering results, then he gets the investment. And that's probably one of the most powerful stories that I've heard.
So please tell me that at the end of that talk, they mic dropped with priceless.
I mean, you touch on something interesting, though, that we have definitely picked up, which is that some of those brand platforms, and priceless is a good example, McDonald's, Apple, Nike, they all have these brand platforms that have been in existence for years. Creativity is not about doing something new every year. It is about having a different expression of your brand platform, but actually the brands that last the longest and show the biggest growth are super consistent with their creative and brand platforms over time, because consumers then understand where they're coming from. The way you express that may vary by channel. Each execution may vary, of course, because you want to keep it fresh, but the underlying platform anchored in a brand truth stays consistent over time. And increasingly the evidence is let the work breathe. You don't have to have a new ad every month. Let the work breathe for longer, keep investing in it, and you will get superior returns and actually benefit from not having new creative execution costs if you let the work breathe and let the platform breathe over time.
Let the work breathe. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
And so do you have any guidelines about how long work should breathe before it's out of breath?
No, look, it varies. I think I would say on the underlying platform, years.
Years,
I mean, years, decades. So you think about Just Do It, it's been around for forever. Why would Nike ever change that, right?
Right.
But interestingly, when Nike had a misstep a couple of years ago, it's because they stopped telling the story of the brand, and they went too far down the line to just talk about product execution.
Okay.
And you've got to do both. You've got to be consistently telling the brand story and doing the performance marketing. It's not either or.
Okay.
You've got to do both. So look, how long you leave a particular campaign in market varies enormously by market and by channel, of course, as well. But in general, as a rule of thumb, you can probably leave it longer than you think you can.
Interesting. All right, great. Well, hey, we have about 24 hours left in this show, and it's getting pretty wild out here. And tomorrow you have a talk. And so by the time we release this, because this is not live, your talk will have been over. So can you share some of the things that you are going to be talking about tomorrow at Content Marketing World, day 2?
Yes, excited for the talk. It's a panel, so I've got a panel with me who have developed award-winning work. Two of them have won awards through Content Marketing World's own awards program, and one of them has won an Effie award for effectiveness. So I'm going to be asking them a little bit, some of the questions you've asked me, actually, about what was it that they did to create that breakthrough idea, what's the brand strategy sitting behind those campaigns, and what advice can they give to the audience to create great work over time. So we'll be doing that tomorrow.
All right. Now, I have one question I want to ask about that, which is when you're running a panel, walk me through how much of your panels do you like to have scripted in front versus, just kind of like, being extemporaneous and on the fly. Help me understand, how do you keep it exciting on a panel? Yeah,
we've got a kind of set framework of questions that the panelists have seen in advance. So they've got some thought starters, and actually we're showing the campaigns that won. So we needed to put some framework around that.
Sure.
But I've reserved the right for follow-ups and asking them some questions. And also, I want to get them to interact with each other as much as possible, because I think, panels can be super dull if it's just fairly rote answers and one by one. So I want to get the panelists to engage. So I'll throw in a few extras to get them to chat. Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, like how much of a sadist are you to your panelists?
I'm probably a 6 or a 7.
6 or 7.
I've been a panelist.
You've been a panelist,
and it's can be pretty tough if it comes the other way. So,
all right,
so I'll be a 6 or a 7.
I am looking forward to a 6 or a 7 on this, because that's the kind of panel that I want to run. I want to run the hot seat, and I think that'd be a lot of fun.
We'll see how I get on.
Yeah, we'll see how they get along. So great. And in terms of what you want to get out of the show for yourself and for Lions, what is it that you want to get out of this show before it ends?
For me, these coming to shows like this is all about hearing from the industry, whether that's sponsors, or the delegates who are attending, because that's really important to feed into us, so that when we're setting the agenda for our next events or for the digital work we're doing on the platforms, that represents what we're hearing from the industry and what we think they're worried about. It's a big listening thing for me from the show. Obviously, we want it to be a commercial success, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's listening for the next edition, for what we're going to do on our other platforms over the next few months.
All right. I just want to go to the really sick party tonight, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, that should be good too.
That'll be a good time. Do you have a preferred drink that you like?
I'm a bit partial to an old fashioned.
All right.
We'll see how the night goes.
Here we go. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about Lions, what's the best way for them to start to engage with you guys?
Yeah. So if you go to lions.co. That's the home of where all of our brands come together. If you want to find out a bit more about Cannes Lions, then canneslions.com. And there's get yourself on the mailing list. We distribute content on a regular basis, and then follow us on our social channels.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's been a pleasure having you on. From Content Lion to the Lions, it's great to stick with the pride, and so we're delighted to have you on Content Kingdom.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Outstanding.
Thanks very much.